It's dirty though? Like, is it dirty?
It's dirty as a motherfucker. What you mean, is it dirty?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Smiley. I'm out here with Jay from Red Hat Armament. Today, we're going to be doing a review on the Mitchell Defense rifle. So, shout out to the Mitchell Defense team. They sent this out to us for review. We've had the rifle now for about 2 or 3 months. We just hit the 1,000-round mark, and we're at the point now where we're going to do the review. So, we're going to talk about the shootability, the build quality. We're not going to talk about the accuracy just yet. There are some claims of getting half MOA, and we want to make sure that we can fulfill those for you guys. So we're going to wait till we get to the 2,000 round mark before we actually dive into the MOA standards of these rifles. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Jay, what was your initial impression on shooting this rifle? Go ahead and talk about that.
I like shooting it. I like how it's well balanced. The ambidextrous control right off the bat, I noticed. I like the charging handle. Nice charging handle, you know, it's ambidextrous on both sides. 14.5 pin and welded.
Yep.
All right, cool. And you have all the upgraded furniture, right? You have the B5 stock. There's the B5 pistol grip.
Yep.
Nice and grippy. It has a nice rail on it, nice and sturdy too. It locks into the receiver. I notice it has those little tabs on both sides, so you don't have to worry about any rotation with that. So you throw a red dot or something, and you ain't got to worry about it.
Yep. No movement at all.
No movement at all.
But that's been a really big thing, right? Recently, in a lot of rifles, you see that people are talking about their rails moving, right? And with the rail moving, you start having issues. One thing Mitchell Defense primes themselves on is accuracy, right? So they've done a lot to this rifle to ensure that it can have the utmost accurate shots as you guys can perform as a shooter, because that's gonna be the biggest thing as a shooter. The gun's only gonna be as accurate as you are skilled. So you can't ensure this is as accurate as a mechanical device as you are skilled in the shooter, because if you're not a skilled shooter, you're not gonna make it accurate. But the gun itself has the ability to be accurate. So those tabs, the receiver is 7075 T6, which is a very premium quality. It is molded by one piece. It's billet. It's a billet receiver.
Okay, billet.
Yeah, so it's a billet receiver. There's no wobble in between them, and that's kind of one of the pros you get with a billet receiver, right?
No play between the upper and lower. I like that. That's pretty good, because you know a lot of people, especially when you build it right, sometimes you get a little play between the upper and lower. Sometimes when you buy a gun factory, right, play between the upper and lower.
Yep.
And it's not that big, but it's kind of an annoyance. It could be. So yeah, I like that they put the quality machine to make the upper and lower fit.
Yeah. One thing I also noticed too, right, and you and I were just talking about this, the weight. Typically with billet receivers, you notice they're a lot heavier because now they're cutting out of one chunk of metal instead of a forge. It's a little bit different. With this, it doesn't feel that heavy, right?
No, it doesn't feel that heavy. It's pretty well balanced, right? It doesn't feel as chunky like I do think, because you look at it, it doesn't have like a lot of cutouts and things like that, but it's not chunky. And then I like how they added, like, the QD slots. They have one on the input, so you don't have to worry about that. They have one on both sides of this rail. You don't have to worry about that. So out of the box, you're pretty much good. You ain't got to add no attachments.
Yep.
Or you don't have to switch your butt stock, just to get that QD plate. But there's a QD attachment here too.
Yep. So they did QD on the front, on the center, at the butt plate, and then at the butt stock. So again, for the user, you have QD wherever you want. I know a lot of people like to run front to back. I like to do the 2 middle points. It's kind of just whatever you want. You have the options without having to go and substitute and buy an additional piece. One thing that I wanted to point out is we've been running this, like I said, we just hit 1,000 rounds with a suppressor. It's been suppressed the entire time, and we have not done any modifications. We haven't touched the buffer. We haven't touched the gas collar, nothing. We haven't messed with anything. So right out of the box, running it suppressed was very pleasant. But if you guys go back and check out the SHOT Show interview we did with Mitchell Defense, they kind of also talk highly about themselves on what they do with their proprietary buffer and flat wire action spring. So one thing, and I know Jay here had a really good conversation with Nathan about the metallurgy and the coating they have on the flat wire spring. If you guys go back, you can quote the video. I believe he said that entire system itself lasted up to 2,000 times longer than the average. I think he said, I think he said the average spring dies out in about 8,000 rotations or 8,000 compresses. I think he quoted his, it was either 2,000 or 200,000. I know it was ridiculous, so I'd have to go back and check. But
Probably 200,000.
yeah, it was. I remember it being like a ridiculous amount of numbers, and that's from the coding they did. So they took their time to take a platform that's already been out for a while. The blueprint's out there, everybody can replicate it, and they kind of squeeze all the juice out of it, right? So in addition to their proprietary flat wire and buffer spring, they also thermofit their barrels. Now, Jay, you're super experienced when it comes to the AR-15, the M4 platform. Talk about why thermofitting a barrel is like not a basic upgrade, why it's more of a premium fit for something.
So usually companies that want to squeeze all the accuracy out of the AR-15 platform, they thermal fit the barrels. The reason they thermal fit the barrels is because it's like a 1-to-1 fit, right? So you have to heat up the receiver to a certain temperature, slide the barrel in, and then when the receiver cools down, squeezes around the barrel. So the barrel has no place. So even if you take the barrel nut off, it'd be hard to get the barrel off the upper receiver without actually either knocking it out or heating the upper receiver back up. And I wouldn't recommend it.
Nope.
Because you'll pretty much crack the receiver.
Exactly.
Companies like Knight's Armament, Seekers Precision, stuff like that, they thermofit barrels, H&K, they do it as well, you know, to squeeze all the accuracy out that they can out of them.
Yep. So those high name brand companies, you see they're doing this process. Some of these smaller companies that are the budget friendly options aren't doing that. And then speaking of budget, for this rifle, you're paying about $1,600. Jay mentioned the B5 furniture. It is also equipped with Radiant furniture. So it's a Radiant charging handle, Radiant selector. And then one of the cooler features on here you have is a bolt release, right? One thing that a lot of people, or an ambi bolt release, excuse me. A lot of people are looking for ambi everything, right? And I had watched a video of another reviewer talking about his Mitchell Defense rifle, and he was talking about why there was not an ambi magazine release, and he talked about the usefulness, right? So practicality. How practical is it to have a ambi bolt catch and ambi bolt release, right? Most of us aren't trying to catch the bolt. Like, we're not trying to lock it open with our primary finger, because normally our magazine's going to do that. So having just a bolt release is taking that step further and thinking about the platform as a whole and how people or end users are going to do it. So the practical side of it is amazing. And then one thing I want to talk about before I forget is the M-LOK slots. Did you notice something different about them? They're all the way around.
Oh yeah, they don't stop halfway on the rail.
They don't stop.
Move your stuff back and forth wherever you want to put it.
That, and then
pick rail section.
Instead of being at 3, 6, and 9, it's all the way around, minus the top where the pick rail is. So a lot of people like to put their flashlights at a canted position on one of the angled spots. You can do that instead of having to buy a specific mount to drop it in there. You can actually fit it there. So
you can tell they took the time with precision machining this rail, because if you're doing M-LOK slots all the way around, you want to make sure you have it centered on the flats. And if you don't, then you run into those issues where, like, you know, your stuff is canted, or you can't put a pick rail section when you want to, because it's a little bit too wide. I also like the Geisley trigger here. They just threw it in here, right?
Yeah, and that's a beautiful, again, so when we're talking buying through a manufacturer instead of building, Jay and myself have built tons of rifles, countless. I lost count of how many rifles I built in my time. You're paying for these upgrades, and at the time, right, when you start, because a lot of people want to budget build, right? You've done it, I've done it. You start at like a low cost receiver, low cost upper, lower, and then you start building and putting these things in there, like the Radiant, like the B5 furniture, like the Geisley trigger. And by the time you're done building, you're at the price of this rifle, the $1,600. But what are you missing? You don't have the ambi bolt release. You don't have the billet receiver. You don't have the Geisley trigger if you didn't purchase it. So you're taking the time. You don't have the thermal fit barrel. When you buy with a company that takes the time to go ahead and make sure they put all this effort into having a premium rifle, it's definitely worth the cost, in my opinion, right? The $1,600 price tag that comes along with this rifle is probably the best thing about it, in my opinion. Because for the price, you're getting something that's on par with a Knight's Armament or an HK in a regular AR platform that we know as Americans that we love and whatnot. So what else you got to say, Jay?
Man, just looking at it and those things right there, attention to detail, right? They went ahead and pinned the gas block. Which is nice, because that's something you do. Sometimes people do that after the fact. They build the rifle, they go, oh, okay, let me go ahead and pin my gas block, right? Another thing I noticed, it's just easy to find that. That bolt release.
It's right there.
It's right there. It's easy to find. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to search for it too much, because sometimes, you know, when you do have an ambi gun, you have to search, or you got to hunt around for it, right? You might as well go back to what you know, Coke bottle or whatever you do.
Exactly.
Throw the magazine in here. It's right here. I didn't have to look for it. I was playing with it earlier. I was like, all right, cool. So the build quality, I would say it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I didn't notice any imperfections in the build itself. So
shout out to Mr. Defense on there. You guys did great with the build quality.
Good job.
Shooting feel. This is, again, I am, if you know me, and Jay can talk about it all the time because he's always cracking me for it. I love shooting shorter rifles. I just find them more pleasant. With this being a 14.5 and being closer to a longer rifle in the AR-15 platform, it doesn't feel like a 14.5, right? It shoots like a 12.5. And then we have the anechoic suppressor on here. This is their TI and Echo X223. We're going to talk about that in a different video. But when you have everything, this has everything on it short of a laser aiming module, and maneuvering with it, running it up to everything, it feels like a lot smaller rifle than it is.
And just to mention, right, running this with everything on it, right? We have the sling, LPVO, flashlight, anechoic suppressor. It doesn't feel chunky. It's really wieldy, especially with the anechoic suppressor on the front. It's so light, it doesn't feel like a 14.5. It's like I'm running like a 12.5 with no suppressor on the end of it, right? Because I don't even notice it.
Exactly.
You know, and then the other features they added to it, right? They have the little ridges on the front of the mag well.
Barricade shooting, flared mag well.
Flared mag well, so you don't have to worry about that. So you don't need to buy, you know, go out and buy another mag well and just slap it on there. It's already on there for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Nice, they went short on the ambidextrous safety selector. So it doesn't, you know, get in the way of your knuckle when you're gripping it, because you know when you're grabbing it, it gets right there in the way of your knuckle, especially if the long one, right? So short on one end, long on the other, quick to throw, you know. I like that.
I think this rifle is like for what you're getting out of here. I can't speak well enough about it. Mitchell Defense, thank you guys so much for sending this out for me. Closing thoughts, Jay. What do you think? If you had somebody that was looking for a rifle that didn't want to build, would this be something that you suggest to people?
I definitely suggest it, man. Everything you get is out of the box, especially somebody who's had experience, right? Because you know, people jump into a rifle, then they want to upgrade it later on, right? You can save a whole lot of money, buy once, cry once, call it a day, right? You have everything here. Pin and welded chemo device, so you don't have to worry about fidgeting with that, right?
Exactly.
Came from the factories.
You can take it across state lines, right? It's not an SBR. It's at the perfect length for you to have a stock on it instead of running a brace. Some people are really iffy about running a brace on there. Not me, of course, but you know, other people out there.
This setup I recommend.
Yeah. So we're gonna end off on that. Mitchell Defense, thank you guys so much for sending this out to us. We're gonna continue to review it. This is gonna be one of my primary class rifles for a while. If you're law enforcement and you guys are looking at a rifle, I 100% suggest this to law enforcement. I think you guys would get an amazing rifle in this. Not having to tune anything, running it suppressed, unsuppressed, it's gonna run fine. So we'll call it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me and Jay know what you guys enjoyed. Let me and Jay know what you hate, and then let us know what you think about the Mitchell Defense. Y'all have a good one, guys.
Hey, Mitchell, send me one. I want one.